What's going on? My name is Bradley with Allaqcess Sports, bringing you our first video of the 2022 NFL season. This is our best ball sleepers at the running back position. Now, if you've been to the channel before, you've probably seen our sleepers, studs, and stacks videos that we do every single week of the NFL season. But this year, we're putting out content for best ball and I guess technically your fantasy football drafts if you want to use it there as well. There's a lot of information that you can use and put in other areas of your fantasy football needs. We're going to have a ton of videos. We're going to have the wide receivers coming up pretty soon. The tight end position is one that I think you can really take advantage of in these best ball drafts. So we're going to get into it. But if at any moment you like what we say or you disagree with me, put it in the comments below and give a thumbs up to the video. It really does help out the channel a lot. I'm providing as much information as I can for free every single week as we get into the NFL season. So hopefully you'll come back for those sleepers, studs, and stacks. Let's get into this one for best ball. So although this may be new information for some of you, I get it. Some of you are seasoned veterans at best ball. You completely get the premise of it. You draft a large team, it automatically puts in the best players at each position each and every week. It varies every single week. Don't forget, this changes daily. It depends on what kind of draft room you are in. Say, for instance, there's an injury that happens to Darrell Williams. Obviously, Melvin Gordon is going to shoot up the ladder. Melvin Gordon gets injured, Darrell Williams will shoot up the ladder, and Melvin Gordon will fall. So most of these running backs are probably in a new situation or with a new team that's going to help boost their numbers. We're not looking at your number 2, your number 3 guys that could happen. If there's a couple of injuries, look out for D'Onta Foreman from Carolina. That's not what we're getting into. You'll see kind of what I mean here in a second. But if you miss a big running back early on in the draft, you can get these guys later on, and they're going to fill those bye weeks that you need or the occasional rest period, injury, one-game hamstring injury. That's what we want to prevent. Guys that you can put on your bench and stash because they could pop off at any moment. We're going to start off with a guy who's probably not going to take the field by surprise anymore, but at the time of making this video, I was surprised on how low he was actually being drafted. Leonard Fournette of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's the clear number 1 starter in Tampa Bay. He's being taken outside of the top 40 right now. In the latest draft that I did, I think he was taken at spot number 45 is where I got him, and I'm unbelievably thrilled with that. That's behind Saquon Barkley, behind Antonio Gibson, James Conner, Ezekiel Elliott. All of those guys are taken before him. That's not to say that they're not going to have a good season, but I'm surprised Leonard Fournette went as low as he did. He averaged 18.7 Draftkings points last year in a little bit of a busier backfield with Ronald Jones Jr. They just drafted a guy, so he could be putting up some numbers, but Leonard Fournette, 3rd most red zone touches in the NFL at the running back position, and the 3rd most running back targets in NFL. And you know, Draftkings and PPR, we absolutely love a running back that can catch out of the backfield. Now, I know that one's a little bit more obvious, so we're going to get a little bit more into these deeper sleepers that you need to really pay attention to later on in the draft. I'm talking after the 70th pick or so that can still get you some really good value. Marlon Mack of the Houston Texans. That's right, Marlon Mack has himself a new team. After being bottlenecked behind Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines in Indianapolis, he now moves over to the Houston Texans. Listen, we don't know exactly what to expect, but here's some things that I hope for. I'm assuming he's going to be at the top of the depth chart, above Rex Burkhead, Dameon Pierce, Royce Freeman, and a couple other running backs that they currently have on the roster. Even though it is a bad offense and Davis Mills doesn't have a whole lot to work with, you have to stay somewhat balanced. Regardless, they really don't have a first down back. After they lose David Johnson, I don't know who you're going to get to replace him. I'm assuming it's Marlon Mack. That's what many experts are also saying. And don't forget, in 2019, he was a 1,000-yard rusher and had 8 rushing touchdowns. He's running back 60 on the board right now. That's along the lines of Myles Gaskin, Sony Michel, Raheem Mostert, who all play on the same exact Miami Dolphins team, D'Onta Foreman, the 3rd-string running back for the Carolina Panthers, Tyler Allgeier, the new running back in Atlanta, who's going to be behind Cordero Patterson, as well as Kenneth Gainwell, who's technically running back 3 on the depth charts in Philadelphia. Marlon Mack should not be going as low as he is. Put him on your bench, and you won't regret it. Now, we talked about one former Indianapolis Colts. Let's talk about a current Indianapolis Colts running back. Nyheim Hines, an absolute value play for me. A couple of key things. He is definitely locked in at the number 2 spot behind Jonathan Taylor. There is no question about that. He's not going to be a starter. He's not going to be the number 1 unless Jonathan Taylor goes down. However, the Colts recognize what kind of talent he has. If you're reading the newspapers, you're reading the clippings, you're reading the magazines and the tweets, they're kind of messing around with the idea of spreading him out wide and putting him in the slot or as that wide receiver 3. Matt Ryan is a huge fan of pass-catching backs. Look at the numbers that Devonta Freeman put up. Tevin Coleman, Cordero Patterson just this past year, the numbers that they were able to put up. Matt Ryan is going to be able to facilitate the ball. And don't forget, Nyheim Hines had 57 targets in 2021 out of the backfield that he shared with Jonathan Taylor. That's 12th most in the league. I don't know what to tell you. There's no reason this guy should be drafted as low as he is right now. Now, if you really want to make a splash in your league and people go, what? Isaiah Spiller. We're assuming he's going to be put into the number 2 spot. He is a good NFL talent. He fell out of the first 2 rounds, but he is going to be behind Austin Eckler with Justin Jackson leaving. Larry Roundtree and Joshua Kelly have been all but underwhelming. Did I say that right? Joshua Kelly and Larry Roundtree are just not as good as we thought they were going to be. So someone's going to have to pick up the slack behind Austin Eckler. It's going to be Isaiah Spiller of the LA Chargers. Austin Eckler was 2nd in the NFL in red zone touches. Workload management or injuries could play a factor this season. Wouldn't be surprised if both of those things actually play a factor. Unfortunately, if Austin Eckler does go down, he was tied for the NFL league for running backs targeted in the passing game. So if he does go down, Isaiah Spiller is probably going to be that guy. We talked about one running back that already found a new home. Here's another one for you, Darrell Williams. He's now in Arizona, and yes, he is behind James Conner. There's no mistaking that. Again, I cannot say that enough. I don't expect these guys to be the starters, neither should you, but let me point out a few reasons why you should still have him on your bench, because he could come in crucial in those bye weeks and injury-prone teams. Without Chase Edmonds, Christian Kirk, and DeAndre Hopkins, Arizona could be looking for some pass catchers, especially early on in the season. He had 57 targets while he was in Kansas City. Yes, that is a pass-heavy offense. 57 targets for the Kansas City Chiefs, so he's comfortable catching the ball out of the backfield. Chase Edmonds saw 53 targets as running back number 2 last season behind James Conner. I would expect similar results. There's no reason Darrell Williams should have that much of a fall off. If James Conner does go down with another turf toe that's going to keep him out 4 or 5 weeks, Darrell Williams hops in. Kyler Murray needs someone to throw to, especially early in the season. And lastly, this isn't to describe who's going to be drafted at running back 12 and they're actually going to be running back 5. This isn't saying Ezekiel Elliott is the biggest sleeper in the NFL this season. It could happen, but that's not what this video is designed to do. Hopefully, besides Leonard Fournette, there was no number 1 clear-cut running back on their team. But here are a couple other names that may have made the list. If you read a lot of the reports, the tweets, the blogs, and the vlogs that are out there, here's a couple names to focus in on. Ramondre Stevenson from New England, especially if Damian Harris goes down at any point in the season. Damian Harris, low-key, actually that dude on that offense. Mac Jones is obviously going to facilitate the ball, but they are comfortable running the ball 30 times a game. Damian Harris will eat up many of those touches. Tony Pollard, we saw it a couple of times last season. He has no problem being the number 1 back, and Dallas Cowboys offense is going to be good. It is year in, year out. They're just going to be good. Michael Carter of the New York Jets. Don't sleep on him, okay? Just because they drafted a new running back, don't move him down your list. Michael Carter could still get some love, and you can take him very late in the draft. Darrell Henderson from the Los Angeles Rams. Darrell Henderson was pretty good. I know you took him in a lot of your Draftkings lineups. I put him in a couple of my Millie Makers. Darrell Henderson from the Los Angeles Rams. And then as preseason unfolds, keep an eye on the J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, and Mike Davis news. If you want to draft one of them, I think Gus Edwards is probably the most popular one right now, but I think J.K. Dobbins is going to win out that position and be the number 1 running back in an offense that's going to be interesting to watch, to say the least. Outside of Mark Andrews, you have a lot of wide receivers you got to look at, and we'll get into that in a second because we are going to have a wide receivers, sleepers, and value picks for best ball in 2022, but that's going to do it for the names that you're going to hear from me at the running back position. If you have a question about any of the running backs, hit me up on any of the social media handles that you see at the very top of your screen, or drop it in the comments below. And for those of you that have been here before, thank you for coming back to the video. Our Draftkings 2022 Sleepers, Studs, and Stacks of the NFL season, weeks 1 through the end of the season, is going to be back. You're going to find your best bargain players, the studs that you need to pay up for, and the best teams to stack on offense every single week of the NFL season. So hopefully you'll come back and check those out. Our next video is going to be our wide receiver sleepers. Just a couple of names that you've probably seen. If you've done your best ball draft and you've done one of them, which I highly recommend doing a couple of those cheap $3 best ball drafts, just so you can get a little acclimated to what best ball drafting is. These are some wide receivers you've probably taken with your last 2 picks. Robbie Anderson, he might go into retirement, but he's going almost undrafted in a couple of these games or a couple of these leagues. Randall Cobb, Sammy Watkins going to be that guy. Is it going to be the draft pick from Green Bay, or is it going to be old reliable Randall Cobb teamed up with Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay? And then Duvernay and Rashad Bateman, the battle in Baltimore. Who is going to be wide receiver 1 outside of Mark Andrews? Let me know what you liked, what you disagreed with. If you have any questions, come on back. And who is the rest of the world sleeping on? Is there a running back on your team that the world needs to know about? For me, I'm a Carolina Panthers fan. I think Christian McCaffrey is back. He looks good. I hope he has one heck of a season. Now, when you draft your team, it may not be perfect, and that's perfectly fine. No one's is perfect. See you in the next video, guys. I appreciate you.